Welcome. In today's sessions, we will be talking about Business Central integration with Power Platform. My name is Błażej Kotełko. I'm a program manager at Microsoft in the Copenhagen office.
And my name is Enrico Cimitan. I'm a software engineer working with Błażej on the Power Platform connector.
Today we will talk about Power Platform in general, and then we'll dive deeper into what's new in Power BI integration and Power Automate integrations. And then, of course, we will do a little bit of demo, as always. Power Platform is this family of great tools allowing you to build extensions or products that work together with Business Central. And of course, depending on what your role is, what you need, you will use different tools for those. If you are looking at data, you're analyzing data, and you're building reports or dashboards, you would be, of course, using Power BI. If you're looking at building some additional apps or automations around Business Central, for sure you will be looking at Power Apps and Power Automate, maybe even Power Virtual Agents to build chatbots or Power Pages, the new tool in Power Platform family to build external pages. And of course, all of this runs on Dataverse, which is the data management system from Power Platform family. Business Central is very well connected with all of those tools. For Power BI, we have our own reports, we have some apps, and of course our connector. And for the rest of Power Platform family, we have our Power Platform connector, which is the central piece, and we will be talking about that today. We also have Dataverse Virtual Tables plugin, which is a technology allowing you to virtualize data from Business Central and have it directly in Dataverse. And we also have the Data Sync technology, which is useful for connectivity with other Dynamics 365 products. But today we will be talking mostly about those first two technologies. So let's dive deeper into Power BI. For Power BI, as you know, we offer those reports that are available directly in Business Central. We have the connector allowing you to build your own reports or dashboards. For that, you will be using Power BI desktop product, which is the authoring tool. And then we have also apps that are available in App Source. You can download them into your Power BI service. And then however you do that, you can look at your reports embedded in Role Center inside Business Central. You can look at them also embedded in lists, so several lists in Business Central have the ability to view Power BI reports. And then, of course, you can look at that in Power BI directly. And this is all powered by our connectors. We actually have two different connectors, one for Business Central online for the cloud solution, and also the other one for on-premises Business Central. All of those connectors allow you to access data in different ways, but to access data in Business Central. And of course, they are fully supported in Power BI service. And actually, they are built into Power BI desktop. So when you are downloading Power BI desktop to build your own reports, you will install the connectors for both of those services directly on your machine. Of course, those connectors, especially the cloud connector, covers all the APIs that Business Central exposes, and that is both standard APIs or any other custom APIs that you would build. And then, of course, also web services, which is this legacy technology. We support features that we already talked about last time. So, of course, read-only replica, Excel organization, data types, and many more. But in this release, we also added support for Power BI data flows, and that is an important point. So in this release, you have the ability to build data flows, Power BI data flows, using our Business Central data, and Business Central being that data source for those data flows. You will use that to build your own data transformations inside Power BI service, and then use them to empower your reports or dashboards. So then Power BI data flows form that kind of middle layer between the data source being Business Central and your reports and dashboards. Of course, it allows for more complex or advanced data scenarios, and also allows to share data sources much easier. Allows also to build data flows and prepare those data flows for your users, for people who consume data from Business Central using Power BI, because they can then use Power BI service to build reports and dashboards, and they don't need to even use Power BI Desktop to author new reports. If we go back to the Business Central product itself, one thing that has changed is also the visibility of Power BI Factbox on list pages, which is now controlled by personalization and customization, precisely as the rest of Business Central UI. So if you need to see the Power BI part on lists, you need to go to personalization and unhide it, or you can also use role customization and provide that customization for the whole role and then for all users who are in the same role. Another important element, and that was also a feature that was requested by the partner community, is the ability to build role centers in Business Central that have multiple Power BI parts. So far, it was only possible to have one single Power BI part, which also means one single report on the role center. Right now, you can build role centers that have multiple parts and have different reports. So different reports will be displayed in those parts. And then, of course, using personalization or role customization, and users even can move those parts around and customize them freely and select specific reports and so on. Those parts can be repeated in a role center many times. We actually provide a sample for you with 4 different parts, but you can build, as a partner, you can build easily a role center page that has 2, 6, or any other number of those parts that you would wish. One additional feature that has been added to this current release of Business Central is a set of new APIs, and those APIs are specifically designed for financial reports. Also a feature that was requested by the community, because right now in those APIs you will see a lot of dimensions data. That data was requested, of course, and is quite useful for any financial reports. You can use those, of course, in Power BI, but you can also use those APIs in Excel layouts or any other data analysis tools that you would build. Those APIs are in the Advanced APIs section in our connector. So if you open the connector, connect to the new version of Business Central, you will see those APIs under Advanced APIs in the Reports Finance category. There is 16 new APIs added there. Let's switch to Power Automate and talk about Power Automate improvements. And we will start with a slide that you probably have seen before, announcement that was made a couple of months ago, but I would like to call it out again. The Power Platform connector for Business Central is no longer in preview, so you won't see the preview tag added to your actions, and is currently GA a couple of months ago, as I mentioned already, in April 2022. So Business Central and Power Automate. You have 3 different ways to build automations with those 2 tools. And of course, the approval workflows and the templates for approvals for documents and actions, this is probably a main area, and an area that you have probably experienced already in the past. We have not changed those approval templates this time in this release, but we have added a lot of interesting functionality to all of those actions and capabilities of the connector, so those allow you to build a little bit more advanced workflows. You can also build automated workflows, and they will run depending on a specific event. It might be a data event, it might be a flow that runs on a regular basis, and I think we will have a little bit of a demo later on so you can see how that works. But you can also build manual or instant flows, and this is a new capability added as a preview in the previous release, and right now fully in this release. And that is actually the Automate action group. So you will see that action group on many pages in Business Central right now. You will see that this is an ability to run a specific Power Automate flow in the context of the selected record. And then, of course, you have you're using a specific trigger, special trigger that we built for Power Automate in our connector. And then you have the ability to control the visibility of those actions coming from Power Automate, pass some parameters and context, and then, of course, add some additional user experience using Power Automate. And you will see that a little bit in a demo. Right now, because this feature is added to the product fully without the need to go to feature management as before, you will see this Get Started with Power Automate visible under the Automate group on many pages, and that is for non-evaluation companies. So in evaluation companies, if you're starting playing with a trial of Business Central, that feature is enabled by default, so you can play with it already. But in non-evaluation companies, you need to go and start with Power Automate, go through the wizard, enable that. But you can also make a choice and decide not to enable this feature. And as an admin, you have the ability to completely switch it off for all users. But you can also control, using a permission, you can also control visibility and access to those actions and to the whole feature, user by user or role by role. So this is really powerful for admins to fully control access to this new feature. The feature is also relatively flexible right now because with this new action bar that we added in the product, you have the ability to personalize those actions that are coming from Power Automate, and you can also promote those actions. So you can move them around action bar and make sure that the special action that you have built using Power Automate is available to your user with one click. You can also control those actions using AL. There is a special new structure in AL, and I would encourage you to have a look at the session provided by my colleague Peter, who will be talking about everything that is new in AL in this release. So the best way to experience this is to see it in action. So let's do a quick demo. This is my Business Central, and as you can see, this is my non-evaluation company. So if I go to sales invoices, for instance, I have bookmarked those already here. I can see that I have this new Automate group in the action bar, and I can get started with Power Automate. Set up Power Automate, agree to the privacy notice, and in this moment, the feature is enabled for me automatically. So now if I refresh, I can go to Automate and see a specific action that is coming from Power Automate presented to me. I can now personalize and take this action, move it here, and the action will be available for me right away. So if I had any invoices, I could just click this and send this invoice on Teams. How that action works and how this Power Automate flow delivering this functionality is built, we will see in a moment in a demo that will be delivered by Enrico. So over to you, Enrico. Can you tell us a little bit more about the technical side of the connector and what's new, and then give us another demo?
Thank you, Blažej. So I'm going to talk to you about some general improvements we recently made in the connector, and I'm also going to demystify some of the demo that you just saw from Blažej, and in particular, the question like, how do I get the flow to show up in the Business Central UI? So I'll start by talking about some improvements we had in the connector in the recent release. And first of all, we are constantly improving our documentation, and we want to make both the tooltips and the description and the documentation better for users and also for partners that use our connector. This also includes renaming the connector to the full name of the product, which is Dynamics 365 Business Central. other than that. So we've added also some improvements in particular on the find records action. For example, we have relaxed a limit we've had for a long time about only being able to retrieve 1,000 records from Business Central. Now that limit is no longer there, so you can retrieve a much larger data set. Also, we have improved support for nested entities. For example, when you need to retrieve the sales invoice lines for your sales invoices, we made that a bit easier through the use of the find records action. I also want to mention, even though we mentioned it before, that we are deprecating our V1 actions and triggers. So if you have some very old flow that still uses V1 actions and triggers, we encourage you to move these to the V3, which is the newest version of our actions. I also want to mention what's coming later in the next month, before the end of 2022. And that's, first of all, support for access to media types. That includes images in Power Apps and also in Power Automate. We're also going to add support for accessing PDF attachments and, in general, documents and files coming from Business Central. And I mentioned we have support for accessing related entities. We want to improve that support and make it a bit more user-friendly, so that's also coming in the next release. I will now switch to my demo. I'll start by talking about the improvements on the find records action. And I'll show you a flow I have here, which is triggering every Monday, and it's posting some invoice recap on Teams with some details. So my flow is starting every Monday, and then I will zoom in into this find sales invoices action. So here you can see that I'm setting a filter query to the posting date, and then I'm using some formula to calculate what the posting date should be. I'm also ordering my records by the total amount, including taxes. So until today, this action could only retrieve 1,000 records. But let's say that my business is successful and posts more than 1,000 invoices per week. I can go to the additional settings here in Power Automate, and I can activate pagination. If I activate pagination, I can specify a maximum number of records to be retrieved. And now the number can go up to 100,000. If I go to 100,001, I'm hitting a hard limit on the Power Automate side. But we hope that 100,000 is enough for all your applications. Now, here, my flow is basically building an HTML table that I want to post on Teams. But if I wanted more details on my sales invoices, I could use a new action to get the sales invoice lines. Here, for example, I have a filter query that is filtering for the document ID coming from the previous step. This allows me to get all the sales invoice lines for my sales invoice. I have already run these last Monday, and this is the output that will post to my channel on Teams. It's not very well formatted, but you get the gist. I will go back to Power Automate and show you another flow. And this time, I'll talk about how to get the flow show up in the Business Central UI. So I have here a very old flow that I created maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And here I want to just get some invoice details and send them on Teams, maybe because an invoice just needs attention. So if I want to run this flow today, I'm using just a manual trigger where I have to input my invoice number manually, and that's very tedious and not really user-friendly. So let's change this flow. So as you can see here, I'm using a manual trigger. Let's remove it. And instead, let's search for Business Central. As you can see here, I have a for a selected record V3 trigger. I'll choose that one. And here, I can add some filters on which environment and company I want this flow to show in. For example, I have 2 environments in my tenant, production and sandbox. I might want this flow to show up only in production or only in sandbox. I can also leave it empty. This is fully optional, so my flow will show up in all my environments and companies. Most importantly, there is a page or table field here. That allows me to make this flow show up only in certain pages or for certain tables in Business Central. For example, this flow relates to sales invoices. I really don't want these to show up in a customer page, for example. So I can just set it to page 9301, which is the invoices. And this flow will show up just in that page. Then I am retrieving my sales invoice. And here I have to specify, of course, which system ID to use. And I will have the system ID of the selected record in Business Central as an output of my trigger. That means from Business Central, when I start this flow, Power Automate will know already the context that this flow is running. So I will choose the system ID here. Now, this is right now hard-coded to just one environment and company. Of course, that's not very flexible. What you can do is you can select here a custom value and add the environment and company coming from the trigger. If you do it, then your flow will just get the sales invoice from the environment and company where the flow was triggered in. You have to do that for all subsequent steps that you might have that use also Business Central. Now, my Power Automate flow will then just create an HTML table and post a message in Teams. But let's just rename it, because now it's no longer manual flow, but now it's just to send an invoice details on Teams. And this is exactly the flow you saw from Blažej's demo a few minutes ago. One last thing I want to mention. As an output from the trigger, you can also get the web client URL that is pointing to the specific record in Business Central. So for example, here, I'm posting on Teams, and I'm saying that some attention is required for this invoice. And it might be useful for my target user to just know you can click on this link to open the invoice in a browser. This closes the loop between Business Central browser client and the Power Automate experience and flow. That concludes my demo.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Let's go and talk about some additional final bits. One thing that we would like to call out, and this you probably have heard about that, we have a very successful telemetry app on AppSource that is specifically aimed for partners and allow you to analyze telemetry coming from environments that you support or maintain. That app actually contains data related to connectors as well, so you can analyze and see, what is the traffic coming from Power BI refreshes or Power Automate flows that you have built, and that might help you analyze performance of your environment. So quite important to have a look at that app, also from that perspective of Power Platform. And of course, we have updated the documentation. We have some new bits in the Power BI documentation on the first link. We have then the second link for Power Automate, and also updated documentation there, and some samples in the BC Tech area where you can download some samples for Power Automate and Power BI. And of course, we have some Learn material in our Learn portal, some videos and training material. So we highly encourage you to have a look at that and get more familiar with Power Platform and Business Central integration with Power Platform, because definitely this is the future for you and for us. That will be it for this presentation today. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you.